Masters Cast, the first He-Man and She-Ra podcast on video. I'm John, also known as TheShadow.
I'm Katie, also known as Rainbow Bright.
Oh, is it my turn?
It's either you or me, and I couldn't remember who it was.
I'll go. I'm Leanne Hannah, also known as Stratosmecca.
I am Martin Penny, also known as Wacky Martin.
And I'm Josh Lioncourt, also known as Lioncourt, with the easiest spot to remember because I'm last.
You're like, this in the TV shows where they're like, and Lioncourt as like, it's like that like
Special guest.
Musical guest, Josh Lioncourt.
Well, we decided to, as everyone knows who previously has listened to our main audio podcast, we do episodes still sporadically, but we're the first He-Man and She-Ra podcast, all dating back all the way back to 2005. And the reason we're together today is kind of like sad news, but finally He-Man.org closed its doors. It closed its doors last Tuesday. So as of November 2023, there is no more He-Man.org. There's no more He-Man.org forums. That is kind of was the mecca, the core of the fan base for a very long time, was the interaction on the He-Man.org forums. So we kind of wanted to do a tribute episode remembering all the fun times we had at He-Man.org, and kind of like even a little bit beforehand, because several of us knew each other and became friends even before He-Man.org kind of got its synergy going. And that was with the original Guardians of Grayskull mailing list, and Adam Tyner's newsletter kind of went hand in hand with that, which was called the Scrolls of Grayskull. And so I was on the mailing list, and everyone was on it except Martin, right? Because Martin was even younger than I was.
Martin was not on the mailing list. No, Martin would have been potentially 10 years old when the mailing list was. I can't remember when that was, but yeah, it was definitely. I think I joined the forums when I was like 16, 17. So I don't know how much earlier that was, but definitely before my time.
Well, to date you, I got the internet in sixth grade, middle school, however old one is in that. And then I started posting, I found the mailing list probably shortly after it started, I guess. But when I posted on there, I had a university email address because my father worked at a university, and that's how I had internet so early back in 1994. That was like a big deal. Like, now middle schoolers would have it all on their phone. Most did not have the internet back then. But everyone thought I was in college because I had a college email address. So little did they know I was like in 8th grade or 9th grade.
It's amazing.
Back then, when not long after I had gotten online, I remember, Adam Tyner had that website up very, very early on in the internet days. He also had a Weird Al site as well.
Yes.
And I remember the story that he told about going to a Weird Al concert and getting to meet him and get something signed. I don't remember what now, but he was getting an autograph. And he told him, "Oh, I've got a Weird Al website or whatever." And he looked at him and like, "Oh, you're the He-Man guy." And I remember him telling that story. I think it was on the mailing list at the time when he told that story. But really fun times back then.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but like one of my favorite things of that era, so even before He-Man.org, was just kind of like finding out such new information. Like I remember on the mailing list, like people even saying like, well, I remember an episode where, I don't know, some random like She-Ra episode that was never released to videotape, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember that too. So then it was kind of like piecing together, like nobody kind of knew like how many episodes of He-Man and She-Ra are there. This person remembers this episode, that person remembers that episode, and kind of like compiling that information. And then a lot of us started doing like VHS tape trades where So I had a lot of stuff recorded off of the reruns on USA Network.
Nice.
And I remember copying those and sending, and then, you know, getting episodes I didn't have back from someone else. We kind of take it for granted now that you can even just pull up all the episodes streaming, right? Like we didn't have any type of archive back then of what all was actually available at the time.
Yeah. God, it's so weird to think about how much more information we have these days because of all the fans that congregated and shared this information, and then eventually getting in touch with people who actually worked on the show, which in the early days we probably thought, oh, pipe dream, that'll never happen. Like, cool that these exist, but voice actors, like, never gonna be able to talk to any of them. People who wrote this show, nah, just like, you know, unicorns. But actually being able to meet some of these people over the years and interact with them and them interacting with the fans, and none of that would have happened without this website. The community that was started even before it with the mailing list and so forth. So it's made a massive, massive difference. I'm sure we'll get into more of that, but that was just something that popped into my head. One of the many things that that site led to.
I want to show. I have like one of the old Scrolls of Grayskull, which was the the what's the word I'm looking for?
Newsletter, right?
Newsletter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But like this is how, I don't want to say silly, but just how like kind of fun the stuff was back then, because like we were just truly like He-Man and She-Ra geeks talking about weird He-Man and She-Ra stuff. Like what is he talking about in here? Like he's made like some type of photo. It won't get larger, so I don't know what actually he's talking about. But like it's literally just like he's listing new websites. Notice, look, this website doesn't even have a domain.
Oh my God.
It's just DNS, like, you know, IP numbers to load a website. By the way, I wouldn't advise going to any of these. Who knows what's there now? But like literally, like this is what used to entertain us, right? It was basically text, a lot of text, back in the early days of the internet. Like he's listing like action figures that we knew existed. Like think about that. Like you didn't even know what were all of the action figures that were released. I mean, unless you truly owned all of them back in the day and still had them. So I don't know. I just thought it was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I remember when I first got online, I want to say it was like 95, I think. But He-Man was one of the first things that I actively searched for. And then I found Adam Tyner's site, and then the Scrolls of Grayskull joined. And you know, then that went to the Guardians of Grayskull mailing list. And then He-Man.org. So that's definitely, I remember the first piece of artwork I ever did and posted online was He-Man. And that was like in 97, I think.
Wow.
So
do you remember the one you did? It was like a group drawing. I think it had Grayskull in the background.
It was kind of like a montage of, yeah, that's I think that's the very first one that I put online. And that was like 1997 that I posted
I had that printed out. I went and used a laser color printer, I believe at the time, which was swanky. I printed it out and it was on my like high school binder. Like,
really? That's so cool.
High school. I put it like in the little plastic slip cover in the front.
It's adorable.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna look for it.
Like the image is kind of burned in my brain because I would look at it every day.
I'm gonna find it. It was like done in like marker and colored pencil, and like I did it at school, I think. You know, but yeah, I've been going through a lot of old stuff, so I'll find it.
Excellent.
Well, yeah, I found a lot of old stuff when going through my archives. Just as an obsessive He-Man fan, right? One tends to save a ton of stuff. So talking actually about He-Man.org, I found the original splash page before He-Man.org.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, this was before like anything was there. So back in 1997, a guy named Jason Moore registered He-Man.org, and then you can see in here he established the actual site in 1998, and then he kind of put feelers out, and basically what happened was He-Man.org kind of became the merge of two sites, which was Adam Tyner's website that we all it was probably the first He-Man website most of us ever visited, and then Matt Ratzloff's He-Man site, which is called like Heroes something or other. That one I don't have an archive of, but and then who would have thought, right, that it was going to grow to what it became. Does anyone actually remember this splash page? Because once I pulled it up, I was like, this does look familiar.
It kind of does.
Yeah, that logo at the top.
Right?
At
It's
the
the logo
top,
at the
yeah.
top with the lightning bolt thing.
Yes.
Like that looks. It was just a simple, right? Like it was probably to kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like entice, right? Ooh, what's coming soon? Type thing. But of course now we have no He-Man.org, but I'm pulling this one up because when they actually launched He-Man.org, if you remember, and James Eatock posted the images, they had all these He-Man.org kind of banners, and a different one would load when you went to the sites. There was like one that was like, themed even New Adventures. There was one that was themed regular old He-Man, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of when Val Staples took over. So he was able to take the site off of Jason Moore, and then he became the kind of figurehead, I would say, of He-Man.org. He owned it. He paid for it. He kept the forums up, and then we evolved into having like parties and power cons and all of that stuff. But I don't want to diminish the value of the content on the website, but I feel for most people the core of He-Man.org was the forums.
For sure.
I mean, would everyone agree with that?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there was a big migration, right, from like the late 90s into the, or maybe 2000, maybe early 2000, where everyone kind of moved from the mailing list to the forums.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of overlap during that time, from what I remember. We're really stretching our memories back, aren't we, guys? But
Yes.
because like you mentioned a few minutes ago, right, about figuring out the what action figures existed and stuff, and a lot of that was going on the mailing list and spilled over into the early .org days and got down even into the minutia, right? Like, Man at Arms was released in France with a hard plastic head instead of the squishy rubbery one that everybody else got. We got down into the nitty gritty, but that was all during that kind of switch over from Guardians to the forums.
I remember, sorry, real quick, y'all are like spurring things into my brain. Well, two things. We used to come up with all of the character names. Like people were going through episodes, making a list of all of the people who showed up once. And I don't remember the name of the episode, but the one with, I'm still going to call her the chicken chick. The lady, it was like a big chicken and she had a cat. It was like a pink panther looking thing, kind of like Cringer, but it was pink. And I remember being obsessed with, I think we finally figured out her name was like Glee Doll or something. But her and the cat, both of them, I think I was just like obsessed for the longest time. Like, what are these characters' names? All of the characters have names. They must have names. So like Chicken Chick is still in my head, going on and on about this stupid character. And then I had a webpage for a little while where I put everyone's nicknames, because everybody went by a nick on the mailing list. Or not everybody, most people. And I would find like a little picture of whatever character they were using the nickname of, and I would put that beside I'll have to look. I may have a backup of that somewhere. because that was such a thing. Like, I think I went by either is it Adora or Shira. I got one of the good names. I remember being like super proud. Because like if
Yeah,
you
if
came
you
on
didn't grab
later,
something soon, there were a lot of crappy names left over. Like, I remember I was like, I don't want to pick a name, and then like everyone took all the good ones.
Yeah, I got Stratos, so I got in there
As you
nice.
should.
early. And then I remember later on, like, somebody joined the mailing list and tried to take that name, and I was like, that's me. Sorry.
I think that's one reason I started that webpage with the list of usernames. It's like, nope, go look on the list. If it's taken, find something else.
I was Dark Dream on the Guardians of Grayskull list for a long time.
Nice.
I had completely forgotten about that.
I don't remember what I picked, to be honest. I know I picked the name. So our names here, right, on the podcast all stem from the He-Man.org forums. That's what we were known as. And I specifically picked TheShadow, I remember, because I didn't want at first to be identified with who I was on the mailing list. If that I don't know what my reasoning was behind that. But I remember having a discussion with Adam Osgood. Do you remember him?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was good friends.
Right?
Yeah. I was good friends with him on the mailing list, and I remember us having a conversation about me being unknown on the forums versus the mailing list. I wish I could remember
have a
why. I'm sure there was some
reputation.
type of
Well,
drama behind it.
for a while you used John Callis on the mailing list. You
I
may have
just- yeah.
changed it at some point, but
Okay, maybe I just want to be me.
because I remember on the .org TheShadow being around, and it was like months, if not years, before I connected you to who you were on the mailing list.
Yeah, before I became a moderator, you explained Val didn't know who I was, who TheShadow was, that is, and you told him who I was because I found the information in the old mod forum when I became a moderator. I searched for my name.
Yeah, I may have eventually figured it out, but I remember for a long time I had not put that together.
Yeah, I don't know what my reasoning was. I remember I had a whole plan to become a moderator, though, because I was like, I could really be a good moderator on this site. And I remember Adam Osgood again and I talking about that. Like, it was like, well, I think I'm just going to tell people how it is on the forums. And just be like, well, this thread will probably get moved to this forum, but I'll answer the question for you now. Like I did like such annoying posts like that, but I guess it got the attention I wanted.
I totally remember that. Oh my god.
Yeah.
This is going to get merged with this other one that already exists. Here's a
Yeah.
link
Mhm.
to it.
Yes. But I just always remember, but still being helpful, right? Like I wouldn't just be like, this is going to get merged, but I will answer your question. Blah, 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 blah. I have a, where is it? I have what the forums. So unfortunately, like my archives, I don't have any images. But like this is what the forums used to look like. The old like color scheme. I mean, notice we have a forum called the Madcap Lou Scheimer Productions Forum.
Oh wow.
But this was before classics. There's not even a breakdown for the Filmation cartoons, the New Adventures cartoon, which you eventually moderated, right, Martin? The New Adventures forum.
I did eventually moderate the New Adventures forum, which was it was very sparsely used, even like 10 years after I guess the forums had opened. It was still very like 10 people had watched the New Adventures, so you didn't really get many posts in that forum. I had a very easy job. And when something did happen, I was usually in bed because the only people who had seen it were mostly people in America when I was asleep. So any moderating was pretty much missed by me. So I had a fancy title, but that was about the extent of my responsibility.
I remember too during this time with the forums going from the very early days and transitioning into the beginning of the 2000X era. The forums too developed to some degree kind of its own I don't know, language. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but we had abbreviations for like every character name basically that we possibly could. MAA was man in arms, and
Mhm.
all of that. And it's funny because somebody not knowing what the property was at all coming in there probably wouldn't have been able to decipher half of the half of the posts on there because we had a lot of abbreviations.
Here's another when we changed the scheme of the forums to I guess 2000X, right? Because when it's talking about new toy, new cartoon forum, the new comic forums, that was like the Mike Young cartoon, the 2000X toys, the MV Creations comic.
That was the golden age as far as I'm concerned. Like when not just because I love 2000X, but like the everything was just vibrant and everybody talking and everybody excited. And I have so many good memories of the 2000X era on the forums.
Yeah, I would agree with that because unlike classics, right? I feel like the classics era was very popular on the forums as well, but the Mike Young 2000X toy line, right? You had media. So you had cartoon, you had new comic books, you had the toys in the shell or in the stores. I think that was the biggest explosion, right, for us. And that really exploded the community online because you had the cartoon people, you had the toy people, you had people that were into both. Like,
Well, and you also had a
right?
new generation, right? There were brand new, kids and teenagers and 20 somethings who were discovering it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Discussing all this stuff as well. We had a huge age range of people during those years.
Yep.
This was the era in which I found the forums. I had a very strange route to actually joining because I found them, but I couldn't register to become a member because I didn't
had lots
have
of
an
rules.
original. I had no original email address.
Oh,
which,
right.
Like in theory, they should give you, like your internet provider should give you, and for some reason, maybe there was one, and I just had no idea what it was, but I could never find it. And eventually, my family switched to AOL. And with my AOL email address, after 1 year of lurking on the forums like a creep, I was able to actually join and start posting stuff. But I vividly remember always going to the episode talkback threads and looking at John's screen caps
I have an
in the Mike
example.
Young shows.
You have an example, yes.
I'm prepared. I'm so happy you brought that up. So I loved the episode Talkbacks. And you're right. I felt so like it was my like job and duty because there were so many people that weren't able to watch the cartoon, right? Because of it airing on Cartoon Network in the States, that I would post all these screenshots from like live while the episode was
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, now this is a great example. I got images, there's actual posts with
Oh my god.
but there you go. See, I'm like, ooh, snakes.
See, this is weird because I'm pretty sure this was the first one I ever saw, was Your Price of Deceit one.
Really?
Because I remember you being very excited about Hordak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was like the first time I ever found the forum and was like, oh, wow, Hordak's in this show. Because that was like, I didn't even know there was a new show at the time. I think I'd maybe seen like a little trailer for it online, and that was about it. So yeah, I vividly remember this specific talkback thread.
Did Larry DiTillia write this one?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so that is so funny. So this episode caused me to get yelled at by Mattel because I had read the scripts in advance and I'd have to make notes on them and stuff. And I think Larry must have done, I don't know if it was a chat room thing or it was just another episode or something, and he was in the thread talking about, answering questions and stuff. And I just mentioned, hey, I really like this episode. I think you did a really good job. And I got yelled at because I guess I gave away that this episode was coming up or something. I don't know. But Val was like, hey, you need to delete your post.
Oh, lame.
And I was like, all right, whatever. So
I remember this story because I think you messaged me afterward that you had it.
Yeah, but the so the person that had an issue with it was also the person that created King Grayskull. So that may be another reason why I do not like King Grayskull. Also, he's a horrible character, but
I don't disagree with you.
But
why didn't I save that episode? I'd love to go back and see what I said. I have to look. I need to find the old thread for the King Grayskull, or what was it called? Powers of Grayskull episode of Mike Young, I think, is where King Grayskull makes his debut.
Yeah.
I'm going to find it and reread that.
But it's like I didn't give away spoilers or anything. I guess it's just, because I knew about it or maybe said that I knew about it, I got yelled at.
There was a lot of super secretiveness during the 2000X era from Mattel and Mike Young and stuff like that. I feel like it seems like they really wanted to keep a lot of it under wraps for extended periods. It's a funny quick.
Go ahead.
Quick funny story that I think John might know, but I don't think I've ever talked about anywhere either. Just a funny thing revolving around the boards was, it was such a different time back then. And I remember I registered originally for the forums, and want to say it was in the spring of 2000-ish or so. And I got right around the time that the 2000X stuff was first starting. I think they made the announcement that it was coming on the 4th of July, I think it was, or the 3rd of July, the day before, because I remember it was over 4th of July holiday somewhere in 2001. And I had changed email addresses and forgotten my password and gotten locked out of my forums account, and then nothing I could do to get back in. And I remember emailing Val like, can you reset my password? Can you let me in somehow? Can you fix this? And he's like, I'm not sure how to do that. I'm just gonna wipe it and you can create a new one. So I ended up having to start over in July of 2001.
Wow.
How
in
rude.
That thread that you were just showing us, John,
yes,
was it? I saw the username Fisto. Wasn't that Darren?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
His signature was longliveheman.org, and I'm like, oh my god, there's so many layers to that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us here hung out in the chat room back then too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
feel like we should not give that short shrift, because that's a lot of my best He-Man.org memories revolve around that chat room, and really getting to know all of you during that time. And Swiftwind X, remember Swiftwind X? And
Yep.
And Count Marzo, and that was a great group that hung out in there a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I created the bot. Remember Uncle Montork,
oh my god,
the bot that would kick people out for swearing and things like that. I remember I wrote that bot and was running it on my machine 24/7 to try to keep the keep the room clean.
That's amazing. I'd forgotten all about that.
I have on the screen, just so, because obviously Josh can't see it, the old thread on how to connect to the chat room. And
oh my god,
those were such good times. I mean,
yes.
I was absolutely addicted to just living in the He-Man.org chat room.
Yep. It was great.
It was great when new episodes aired and we would talk about it.
Well, and
the place was popping.
Not only were we in there talking about the episodes, but we got people that worked on the Mike Young cartoon would actually come into the chat room while the episode was on to see all of our, instant reactions.
So
it was
cool.
so awesome and so interactive back in that day.
Q&As with Mattel in there as well.
Oh, moderating those. Ooh, with the amount of people that came into the chat room. So interesting. So when we would go to comic conventions, right? We would all hang out together, whether our main comic conventions, right, at the time back in the day was Wizard World Chicago, which I don't think even exists anymore. At least it doesn't exist as it did back then. And of course, San Diego Comic-Con. And I have some photos from the old days. And I mean, no disrespect to anyone that's not shown, right? That was also hanging out with everybody. I just grabbed a pile of photos and threw them into my Mac here. But like, here's like an old MV Creations booth, it looks like. Either it's San Diego or
showing off the encyclopedia cover.
Yeah, right. That's Val holding that, and there's Emiliano signing at the table.
Is that a gift bag that someone's got down the bottom there?
It looks like it.
It's possible.
Oh no! It's the cover. It's the comic stood up. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were like little handles at the top. I was like, wow,
that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to remember the name of the restaurant we always went to in Chicago.
Was it?
And then I found a photo.
What?
So it was called Ram. And we used to make jokes, several inappropriate ones, and then several He-Man ones, like Ram Man, obviously, or the Ram Stone from the Mike Young thing. But like some of us at like the table partying. I like Gina's reaction there. Like, whoa, we're at a party.
I remember I was always at San Diego Comic-Con in those years. I went every single year from 2001 to 2015. And despite that, I was always so jealous of everybody who was at Chicago Wizard World.
Yeah, these photos I have are random. This one's from San Diego. I don't know what year. But we'd always take group photos. There's Val signing a comic book.
The old timers.
I look like a baby.
Yeah, you do. Oh man.
There's a good group shot.
That's when I was blonde during that stretch.
Right. Yes, you're blonde.
Yep.
Oh, it took me ages to find you, Leanne.
I know.
And just think, guys, like it's been 20 years since that, and at that point it had been 20 years since the home Filmation show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time. This was at San Diego. I think we had the largest, probably the peak of the parties, right? Would have been probably San Diego, just because the amount of people that were there.
Oh, I miss Dean.
Same.
He was.
For those who don't know, Dean was the story editor on the Mike Young cartoon, and he not only did he hang out with us in San Diego, he came to like every PowerCon.
Even on he and his wife's anniversary, he came to PowerCon.
Wow.
And I was like, "What are you doing here?"
Up the badge.
Is that a picture of you on the badge? That didn't look like you.
No, that's Sean Spencer, psychic detective. It was probably what my avatar was on the board.
You were obsessed with that show.
I was so obsessed with Psych. Yeah.
Pineapples everywhere.
Katie's drinking. Look at Jeremy, Mossman from Mossman 897525, whatever his numbers were.
We had so much. Oh my god.
This next photo I totally remember. I don't remember what we were doing, but we were on some like shuttle bus in
Yes.
Chicago.
We went to a restaurant.
Was it to the restaurant?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Oh, good times. More from the restaurants, it looks like. Oh, here's a good group photo.
Was that you over to the right on that one picture, John? Looking
Yeah,
very...
I don't look very happy, do I? I'm like, you know why? I feel like we were all gathering to do the group photo, and people were not like paying attention, and I was getting
You look like you're very desperate to leave. Like these people, I've had enough.
Trying to moderate us and do a group.
That was a good group shot.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Anyway, I thought some people would enjoy those. But what's the word? Like, I have a video clip. And I played it for everyone, for the audience. I played it for everyone just to make sure they're okay with me showing it. Nothing's bad. There were some other video clips that I cannot air on the show. Because it was a little spicy. Just language spicy, not in the way people are thinking. So I'll load that.
Right now I'm doing a video.
Story time telling?
Oh, right.
I might
I'm gonna go around to everybody and let you say hi to the camera.
Oh, that's not good.
Yes, it is. Very good. Your turn.
No, you already got me.
It's a video. This is different.
You already got the mom face. This is scary. You're like, no.
Say hi.
You gotta get some water in you. You gotta get some water in you. Yeah, I don't need it right now. Oh, no, it's like changes first.
I'm
Like
saying
right there.
right now. I'm saying hey to everyone.
Hold us.
What up, Carrie?
So what purpose is this guy holding? Is he serving you purpose or what?
He's her sidekick.
Who's sidekick?
He holds Rainbow Bright Star Sprinkles.
Who the fuck is Rainbow?
How
you doing?
I'm great. How you doing?
Oh my god, you're choking me.
I'll get to be an next time.
Just typical He-Man fans hanging out in a hotel room.
Yup.
Yep.
I love Gina.
We have to talk
You
afterwards.
are so drunk. You
because-
gotta drink some water.
Yeah, there are some stories from those hotel rooms we need to reminisce about that we can't talk about on the podcast.
Another story I'll throw out there as well. When in the late summer of 2002, when the 2000X toys started showing up in stores, there was two versions of Battle Sound He-Man, the Battle Armor type figure. One of them was gold. I was the first one to find the gold one in at a Walmart, and I posted about it on the forums, and literally no one believed me that this figure existed. And I ended up using a flatbed scanner, because back then there were no digital cameras or iPhones or whatever to take a picture of it. Scanned it on a flatbed scanner. It was a terrible picture, but it got posted on the news section on the front page of He-Man.org because I was the only one that had one of these. Yeah.
Was that the one with John Irwin's voice? Or
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. That both the silver and the gold versions had John Irwin's voice, and then of course I didn't.
One had a new voice.
Yeah, I thought one had the
Cam Clark.
Cam
Clark. Cam Clark.
There were
later on they switched it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have like literally like what 4 of those mint on card, 4 of those loose, because there was a silver one, a golden one, then ones with John Irwin's voice, one with Cam Clark's voice. Oh, so much
all the variations.
Josh mentioned the org main page. So this is what the He-Man.org used to look like back at the peak, as I say, during the 2000X times. It was themed. Emiliano redid the theme of the main page. It kind of mimicked his website Masters Unbound, if anybody remembers that. It was an Italian website, obviously. But it was kind of like always the sister site, right? The Italian sister site to He-Man.org. And like this one to me is kind of like the iconic look, because it burned into my brain because we were so active at the time during the 2000X period, if you will. And I must have saved this one because the podcast is mentioned in the news item. I don't know if you can read it. It's probably small, but make it bigger.
I forgot that it gave like a happy birthday message at the top to forum members. That's cool.
I remember like the did you knows at the top, which I want to say maybe that I don't know who wrote them. I want to say maybe it was James Etok who wrote the did you knows.
Probably.
And I vividly remember one about the final New Adventures episode. And at the time, I watched that episode at the time that it aired, but obviously I'd not seen it for like 15 years. So that was my only knowledge of the final episode of the New Adventures of He-Man for like a good couple of years before I finally tracked down like a complete copy of the series. And I remember like occasionally I would refresh the page to try and get back to that fact and I'd be like, oh, where was that one? Oh, I never get that one anymore. And I do remember being fascinated by the did you knows, because it was I didn't know them. I did not. It's all new to me.
I really miss the front news page that was on there for so long, because these days it's like it's hard to find out about everything that comes out unless you're just like everywhere. And I don't spend any time on Facebook. I don't use Facebook. Twitter is kind of a mess right now, and I don't use that anymore either. And it's really hard to know about things as they come out before they're gone. In the last few years I've gotten so much stuff on eBay, but back then with that news page, you always knew anything that was released or coming out, whether it was a comic or a toy or whatever. That was one of the kind of gold banner features of the site for me for years and years.
How many of us had this as our homepage?
Yeah.
Back when that was a thing.
Yep. But it was also a really great resource, not just for the news, but if you were looking at, the figures, it had pictures of all the figures, all the accessories. I mean, it was great, and I still used it up until till recent. Well, before it just went to the forums.
Right.
But I was still using it for that stuff, like looking up references and, all sorts of stuff.
It was a wiki before there was wikis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they moved all the episode, James and Zadok's episode review site too, eventually just moved over to being kind of like engulfed by the org. So like the cartoon section even was all of their old reviews and such a wealth of information. I mean, a lot of that's in the encyclopedia or the cartoon guide, the books that were released now, thankfully. So we still have a lot of that, but it is kind of weird that there is no centralized kind of site anymore. I mean, you do have like Grayskull Wiki and you have He-Man sites and like really cool sites that post things like the Battle Ram blog and things like that. But like, it's just weird. I feel this is truly like the end of an era, right? Like He-Man.org represented the community for so long in a very positive way. It's just, it was a weird emotion, being so part of our lives, even before, kind of being a part of it being formed, even though we weren't directly involved at first.
Well, yeah, Masters Cast here exists because of the .org. If we hadn't all met through the community and become close friends through the forums and the chat room and all the stuff we've talked about here, this podcast would not exist.
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to sorry, I should have made these things larger. This is our original thread. It's in the theme, of course, of the way the forums look now, because I had saved it before they went down. But if you guys remember, we did like a little teaser 1 minute MP3 of like, coming soon, Masters Cast, blah, blah, blah. And just so that I could get like the RSS feed set up. Like it wasn't back in the day, it wasn't easy like it is now to just, push a podcast out to like iTunes and Apple Podcasts and stuff. It was a bit of a work. You had to write the RSS feed yourself. So we wanted to do that to test it. And then we were going to launch the next week with the first episode. But Tall Star, a guy named Jim on the forums, found the little teaser. So then he posted about it. So if it wasn't for the support of He-Man.org, I mean, we wouldn't. I mean, our podcast, I'm not tooting our own horn, but, at its peak, we got wonderfully high download counts for our episodes. And I feel that that's really due to the fact that He-Man.org supported the podcast. He-Man.org posted about every episode on the main page news. They would even in later years feed the episodes out to like Facebook and their Twitter and everything. I'd like to think, we inspired them to do their own podcast, which was very good, Roast Google Dinner. And we would do joint podcast panels at Power Cons. There wasn't any, animosity there. It was like, again, just fans loving He-Man and She-Ra, wanting to talk about it. But I wanted to give a little shout out there to Tall Star for originally finding the podcast pre-launch. And again, of course, on the forums.
I love the second post there too. Podcast?
Yeah, exactly. See, like, you have to remember, like, people did not know. Look, someone posts a definition of what a podcast is.
It was early days. I remember you had to record each podcast onto a mini disc player in those early days, and then transfer it back to the computer because the technology just was barely there to produce podcasts at the time.
Yep. I mean,
I'm reading some of those posts. It's ridiculous.
And now here we are doing video live. Like, it's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so interesting. I'll have to read back through the what's this one? Oh, I think this was so right before the forums closed, just because why not? I did post like a goodbye in the
I went and looked at that. Yeah.
It's the same thing we posted on our Facebook. If you're not following us on Facebook, facebook.com/masterscast. I hope you're subscribed to the YouTube as well. If you're watching right now, hit subscribe. I've totally forgot to mention in the beginning of the episode, but for anyone that is listening on our traditional audio feed, I would advise checking out the YouTube video because of all the visuals we're showing. So a lot of the stuff we're talking about has better context if you can see what's on the screen. And you can go to youtube.com/@masterscast. So that's like the @ symbol like you do in emails, masterscast, or just search for us on YouTube and you'll find it. And click that subscribe button. But we wrote up a little article, and wanted to thank He-Man.org because it was not only such, I feel like, a part of our formative lives, which people may laugh at, like, what, a He-Man and She-Ra website is like part of your formative life? Well, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It was a big part of our lives.
Yeah, it was.
Because it was a community, and we actually got to, I think it's the first time that I was able to meet people with the same interests that I did. You could relate to everyone. You didn't feel weird about talking to people because, it was a really nice community.
Yeah, I was definitely the only senior in my high school carrying around a He-Man lunchbox. So finding other people that totally would have done the same thing or did do the same thing was just like a balm to my soul. It's like, okay, cool. Like, not to say I didn't have friends in high school, like I did, but yeah, like you were saying, Leanne, interests were just very different. And not to say they didn't support my crazy interests, but they just didn't quite get it necessarily. And finding all these people that totally got it and felt the same way. Like my buddy Patrick said something on Facebook recently about this. He was like, we joined He-Man.org because we were nostalgic for He-Man. Now we're nostalgic for He-Man.org. And it's like, it's just come full circle. And it's a different kind of nostalgia, but it's absolutely there. And that late 90s on the internet was my favorite time to be on the internet. Everything was so new, and it was mostly just a bunch of nerds. Like, you had to know what you were doing to be on the internet back then. And like how to run a computer. You couldn't just whip it out on your phone and go to whatever website. Like, yeah, it was a whole thing.
I just remember, I'm sure we had, I mean, I remember there was, there's always drama, but I think a lot of, because the fandom is kind of evolved to kind of being very action figure focused. And I kind of understand that, because think of all of the years we spent from mailing list all the way through the He-Man.org forums, like the big boom. Your core fan base, if you will, that's always going to love He-Man and She-Ra, have already had all of the debates and arguments and things like that several times over, right? Going all the way back to 1995. So now I just feel like it's kind of like been there, done that. Like, we've already discussed this stuff. Like, what else are we going to say about that episode? Or how many times is John going to hate King Grayskull, or say the Problem of Power is not the greatest episode of Filmation He-Man? You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of weird that, like, we were a part of that, and B, that it's like, I hate to say it, but like not really necessary anymore with the times. And that's why it's kind of gravitated towards the action figure kind of collector mentality, is what's keeping the brand alive currently.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember the Flame Wars back on the mailing list those days. And I was a moderator. Me and Paul Stricker, he was Uncle Montork.
Oh,
Nice.
right.
Yep. Yeah, those were some good times.
Speaking of Flame Wars, do you remember Photo Wars?
Oh, heck yeah.
On the forums? Yeah. So I have some examples.
Oh, dear.
So I tried to only pick ones with some of us in them, because I don't want anyone else to get mad. And knowing like the rules and restrictions we had on the forums, and I know, right, given I went all the way up the ranks, right? Moderator, super moderator, administrator. Like, I don't think we would have allowed like something like this in the later days. But basically what Photo Wars were is you took, we used to have a photo pages, right, in the other forum where we would all post pictures of ourselves, right? Get to know each other. This is what John looks like, whatever. And then people would take our heads and, put them on photos. And that would be Photo Wars. Like, for some reason, I'm drinking with Hillary Duff.
Because you wouldn't shut up about her, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I had quite the obsession with Hillary Duff. I think this is you, Katie, right? It was like Hazard.
Harlow and Jeremy. Oh my God, I get to be Daisy Duke and Hermione. This is amazing.
I don't think any of us were in this one, but I thought it was funny.
The movie.
The movie.
Fantastic.
There's Val strangling Carlo.
Nice. I remember that one.
I have a whole folder, but I won't go through all of them. But like, that's the kind of fun we used to have, just stupid fun like that on the forum.
I hope someone has an archive of all of Carlo's shirtless pics.
Well, to be honest with you, yeah, he is shirtless in a lot of the Photo Wars ones, or his head on like some other shirtless body. That was kind of his thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
He went on to play Wolverine, I believe. It's my memory.
I'm quite sure there's a photo manip of him as Wolverine probably in my folder somewhere.
Photo manip. Oh my god, I've heard that term in so long. Wow.
Good times. Good times. Well, does anyone have any final thoughts? Like final thoughts? He-Man.org is gone. Will it ever return? We don't know, but you know, the site had been down for quite some time, a couple years. But Val kept the forums up. But it was, you know, finally kind of time to say goodbye. And he posted, what was it, on Tuesday, last Tuesday. So that was what, November 14th?
I think so.
It officially closed.
End of an
I
era.
will say that as glad as I am that everything is now readily available at our fingertips and streaming and in books and online and everywhere. I miss the days where nobody had a clue where anything was and everything was some massive treasure hunt for He-Man and She-Ra related content.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like my fondest memory.
You had to work for it to find, you know, episodes and, you know, tape trading and, you know, I mean, I remember doing, like, I would draw pictures. I think Scott White, who was Cringer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I remember I drew some pictures in exchange for tapes of episodes. Like, you know. So that was really cool. But yeah, some good memories.
I was trying to get stuff at that time from like file sharing websites.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone ever use Kazaa? Back in the
day? Yeah.
That's where I used to get my He-Man episodes. I had like G.I. Joe. I had one G.I. Joe episode, which was the Pit of Vipers, and I had one He-Man episode, which I think was the Cosmic Comet, and then I had like one New Adventures episode, which was Sanctuary. All in terrible quality, but it was the most exciting thing ever when you actually found one and your download completed and you had it, and it's like, I've got it in some quality. And that might be the only copy that I'll ever see.
Yeah.
When we used to do the tape tradings, this is making me think of this. James Etalk was trying to help me get the remaining She-Ra episodes that I didn't have. And he volunteered Zadok to copy them for me because Zadok was in the States, whereas, you know, James was in the UK. So it's getting those to me, plus the format differences, right? So we kind of just volunteered it. And then I remember Zadok being like, all right, well, I mean, he didn't speak like that, but, you know, you could get the tone in the email, like, all right, I'll copy these for you, but I'm not going to copy the intro and I'm not going to copy like the end credits. Like, I'm just going to do the episode and then like to fit as many on the VHS tape as I can. And I'll send these to you. So I have like this whole slew of She-Ra episodes. Like, I think that cut off every time like Lookie is like, did you find where I was hiding today?
There's no time. Quick.
There's no time. I'm going to just whip these out on like 2 VHS tapes for you and you're going to be good. Because when I met him finally, Zadok, right? That was the San Diego Comic-Con, I think. I remember having dinner with him and you, Leanne, and Rod, I think. We all had dinner with him and like James. And he didn't remember cutting those She-Ra episodes up so tightly for me.
Well, then you probably copied those for other people.
I did,
like,
yeah.
You would recopy them over and over.
Oh, yeah.
To share them.
You know, I remember also during, I think it was during the, it was during the mailing list years. There was this record store in Orange County, California, where I lived at the time, that had they sold new stuff, and they also had like a huge used section of CDs and records and all kinds of stuff and videotapes. And I remember this was probably circa like 97 96 or 97, and I went down there, and they had a entire shelf. There must have been, I don't know, like 80 copies of one She-Ra episode on videotape, all like still sealed or whatever in those big giant like clamshell VHS tape
Oh yeah.
boxes that they used to use. And I want to say, if I'm remembering right, I think it was like Lukey Lends a Hand or something.
Yeah, that was a single release episode.
Okay, I think that was the one that it was. And I remember buying one for me, and they were not that expensive, but they were all still sealed. It was like they were like $2.99 or something. And I remember buying a few of them and sending them to people that wanted them on the mailing list.
I
Yeah,
wonder if
God,
I bought
those
one
were
off
such
you.
different times back then.
It's quite possible.
Yep.
I used to
when
go
I
to
first-
like not Blockbuster, but there were more like local chains like Family
Mm-hmm.
Video or something, and often they would liquidate their old rental videos, right? So they would have like huge bins of like $2 videotapes, right? And that's how I got a lot of He-Man and She-Ra ones, because in the mid 90s nobody was renting those anymore, I'm sure.
That was how I got the Greatest Adventures of All, was at Blockbuster. Yeah.
Mhm. Even in the 80s, I used to rent the VHS tape that had the Horn of Evil episode on it. Like that's why that episode is so like ingrained in my brain, and that song that they sing. And what was weird is I always remember it feeling like He-Man felt old. And I'm talking about like this is like 1985 or 1986 when I'm renting this video, and He-Man to me, as how old would I have been? 4 or 3. I felt he was old because I was used to She-Ra being on TV, right? So it kind of equated He-Man with like old, and She-Ra was like the new. And I just remember, like, it's weird when I watch that specific episode, the Driel's Return with the Horn of Evil. I get that feeling again where I'm like, this is old. Like I feel like a child would be like, "Mommy, this is old. Like, I want to see a new thing." Like I get this interesting feeling when I watch that episode. So bizarre, the mind of a child. But I cut you off, Martin. What were you going to say?
That's so funny because when I grew up in Southern California, I discovered He-Man like the day it debuted, because I was expecting to watch Super Friends, and it was this new thing that I didn't know what it was. And so that was in 83, and it pretty much never went away. Like there was a very short span in 1984 where it went off the air for a little bit, and there was a huge outcry, and there was a big advertising campaign on the channel that aired it in LA, Channel 13, where they were like, back by popular demand is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and it was this big deal. But from that point on, all the way through until like 1988, not only was He-Man always on the air in the afternoons, but when She-Ra came along, it was back to back. We got a He-Man episode and a She-Ra episode. Obviously reruns after 85 or whatever, but it was just a constant through my whole childhood on television.
Yeah, I don't remember thinking He-Man was old when it was on TV. Maybe because it was on the videotape that I thought it was old.
That's funny.
Because I also watched them back to back, and like when it was on USA Network reruns and things like that.
Yeah, that was a bit later on. Like I think
Yeah.
it started on USA in like 89 or 90, I think, right? Somewhere there.
Yeah, probably. Or at least He-Man would have started before She-Ra jumped over to USA Network.
Yeah. But I remember watching both on USA when I lived in Texas for a while, and that was 1990. So right before the debut of New Adventures, which horrified me.
Can you imagine if the forums were there, or the mailing list even, when
Oh,
New
God.
Adventures of He-Man came out? Whoo!
You were very lucky that it was lost for like 16 years, Josh. Disappeared off the face of the earth.
It was I think the BCI DVDs is when I finally even obtained all of the New Adventures episodes, because tape trading for that was almost non-existent. I remember trying to find the New Adventures episodes, and I only had like those 2 VHS tapes, like the Ultimate Battleground, which was like spliced together videotape, and then the one that just had the pilot episode that came with like the figures. So that was fun when those came out.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any for when I was getting back into He-Man. I was like, oh, I want to see the New Adventures again, because that was like the one that I grew up watching, and it was nowhere, and you couldn't get it anywhere. And I think I found a couple of episodes on like file sharing websites, but I think I had like 3 by the end of it. And then I remember it was, who was it who had a website who said, I've got some VHS episodes to trade, and I was like, oh, I'll ask this guy. And I think it was Aiden Cross.
Yeah.
I remember him. Yeah.
Yep.
Mosquito's He-Man Realm, I think, was his website, and he was like the only person who ever had any New Adventures stuff. And I remember emailing him and saying, could I have some New Adventures episodes? And he was like, I have no idea where those are. Why don't you try this guy? And I tried someone else, and he was like, I haven't got them. I don't know why he told you to contact me. Contact this guy. And I think I tried like 5 people, and all of them were like, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Like, I think everyone had just erased all the tapes and washed their hands of the whole thing, and they didn't want to give anything out. There's no New Adventures, and there never was. Stop asking us.
It's funny. My cousin, who's about 7, 8 years younger than I am, was exactly the right age during the New Adventures era, and he loved New Adventures as well. And at that point, and I remember his dad, my uncle, taping a lot of those and stuff. It's like, man, if I had known, about the tape trading all that later, I would have like confiscated those videos at some point, or gotten copies, or something. But that was such
I
a
always
different
remember
time.
my friend found one episode that he had taped, and I must have been like 13 or 14 or something at this time, and I was like, oh, can I have the tape? I'd like to see it. And he was like, yeah, sure. And it's like, it's some stupid episode where Skeletor's in a cowboy hat. And years later, I realized that was the episode Fading Star, in which Skeletor does indeed wear a cowboy hat. But he never got me that tape, because when I asked, I kept having to ask him like every day for like 3 weeks. And eventually he was like, oh, my mom taped over it with like Golden Girls or something. I can't remember what it was. It was some sitcom, and I never got to see it. And I was like, you idiots.
My dad let me tape over episodes of This Old House. If anyone remembers that show with Bob Vila, my dad used to tape that show, I guess, for home improvement tips. And whenever I needed like a new tape, so when you put the VHS tape in, like when you recorded over something on a VHS tape, for those that remember, like once you were done recording over top of something, it kind of did like the static, and it would kind of move and kind of back into like whatever was underneath. And so there's a lot of like Bob Vila after my She-Ra and He-Man episodes. One thing I wanted to mention before we would wrap it up, just so I don't forget, I wanted to say like a special thank you to everyone that were moderators on the forums, because I think the moderators were a key component to keeping the community forums running as smoothly, as respectful as they did. I mean, I know a lot of people thought there were like a lot of rules on the forums, but I think like when you compare it to something like like Twitter or something these days, I think you can appreciate how hard it probably was for us to moderate the forums. And then also hard for people to comply, right, to the rules. But I think it really made for a better and stronger community that we were kind of tight like that. And I'm fortunate I don't have screenshots of all of the moderators. These are the only 2 pages I could find, in my archives. But I just wanted to say thank you to all the moderators, because I was an admin for a while on the forum. So like they had to report to me, I guess. I don't really remember the dynamics, to be honest. Probably because it was a lot of headaches. But everyone was awesome and nice, and did their job, and I hope they feel appreciated is what I would like to say.
Claps to all of you.
Claps.
It's so weird now. Different Facebook groups have popped up now, like He-Man, the He-Man.org memorial page was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm seeing people have been posting or had been posting screenshots of like their avatars and usernames. And so it's really weird putting that to actual names of people
Yeah.
on Facebook. It's been a trip down memory lane for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'll throw out there as well, if there's anyone, because I'm not on Facebook, and I do miss the community a lot. But if anyone does want to find me, since I'm not a Facebook user, unlike I think everyone else here, you can email me through like my lioncourt.com website, or I'm on Mastodon, which is the only social media I'm using extensively right now, although I'm experimenting a little bit with Blue Sky. But I am on Mastodon at lioncourt@lioncourt.social. So if anybody wants to find me over there or send an email through my website or whatever, reach out, because the forums are no more, and a lot of people that we knew back in the day and whatever might be watching this, and say hi if you want.
Well, with that, I think too, just a thank you to everyone who has ever listened to the podcast. We do go back to 2005. We have a lot of episodes if you want to find them on like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Not all of them are good. Some of them talk about Chef Boyardee. I don't remember why we went on this tangent about Chef Boyardee, but that was like a thing, and people got real annoyed on the He-Man.org forums. They're like, "What is this episode about Chef Boyardee?" Like, they need to get on topic. So judge us within the context of the time. A lot of the bulk of our podcast was recorded like in the early days of podcasting. So give us some
and
leeway.
many times at like 3:00 in the morning. So,
yeah, like there were a lot of time differences and things.
Yep.
And it's just a nostalgic trip, right? A nostalgic trip. But we wanted to get on. We wanted to talk about He-Man.org. He-Man.org was so much a part of our lives. It's one of the reasons why our podcast had its lovely legacy that it did. People would come up to us at San Diego Comic Cons and Power Cons and talk about the podcast, and we always appreciated that. But yeah, I guess that's the spiel. I forget how we end every episode. I think there's a phrase we say.
The phrase that a lot of people said on the org before it closed down.
I know, but this is like a live video recording. I can't do the countdown. So you just have to say it.
We can just talk about the countdown instead of doing the countdown. We'll just talk about
it's
it.
like it's as if I was saying like, all right, we're gonna say it in 3, 2, 1.
Good journey.
Oh man, you got to see me do something silly. Usually it's just an audio portion and there's no visual with it.
Me and you were both like doing this for some reason. I don't know.
I don't know why.
Finger guns.
We have issues.